multiplayer game available since 2018, designed by Marcus Bromander and programmed by Forrest Willard. It's developed and distributed by Inner Slot, and it's available on iOS, Microsoft Windows, and Android platforms. In this game, 4 to 10 people can participate, where 1, 2, or 3 are assigned as imposters, who must kill the others without the rest discovering them. Therefore, some have to try not to be discovered, and others have to try to win by completing some tasks and discovering who the imposter is and throwing them outside the ship. The game takes place in an airbase called Mira, with a spaceship called the Scale that is the most popular map. It's equipped with various facilities such as cafeteria, research laboratories, weapons, administration, shields, admin, etc. And it gives the thematic atmosphere of it being adapted to space. The graphics are very simple since the game doesn't seek realism, but fun.
The game is noticed by social deduction where a lie can be transformed into truth, but it must advance around trust and cooperation, since a truth or lie is built based on the statements of each report. According to Javier Lacorte, Among Us is an addictive game, and at the same time it can bring out the worst instinct in a person due to the impotence caused by being caught without evidence or the thirst for power and revenge. In the same way, he mentioned that the game can cause different human personalities to collide, seeing the metamorphosis reflected. Fariña said that the game gradually awakens the worst instincts of the human being, since in certain cases revenge is sucked in the game. With this, people could develop rebellious attitudes before something unfair. In our opinion, we can say that there are cases in which the person does not have control over himself, since it is a game where you can relate to someone else and you are the one who decides whether the results affect you or not. But we do not rule out the fact that this happens in real life. Video games, like anything else, should be taken as such, leaving aside the feeling of revenge mentioned above.
Just like any other form of visual artwork, this video game has a notorious prominence of image over text and over dialogue. As follows, we will explain the main components of the image regarding Among Us as a whole, and specifically the animation when the imposter kills a crewmate, which we found very interesting and appealing. First of all, we have the elements of the artwork. Starting from form. The basic form in the whole video game is the crewmate. Although it does not fully represent any known form, it's pivotal to understand the video game. The form is a roundish body with 2 legs, a bulk that seems like a backpack, and a clear region that seems like an eyewear. Then we have a subject, which are of course the crewmates and the imposter, because between them is the action happens. The imposters try to kill the crewmates, while the crewmates try to discover who the imposter is. About content, we will focus on the kill animation. We can see the 2 entities there, an imposter killing a crewmate and a crewmate getting killed, which is the context of the image. Finally, regarding elements of the artwork, we have context, which is best represented by the phrase, "There is one imposter among us," present in the loading screen and which gives the game its title.
Regarding elements of design, we can analyze the textures, more specifically the lack of them, which are replaced by shadows to give an illusion of depth. Regarding contrast, it is interesting to note that there are 2 black and white extremes, one being the imposter and another being the crewmate, which can also be represented through the color contrast between the white and black crewmates. Regarding color, it is interesting to note that the creator made 12 different colors from which players can choose their crewmates, portraying their identifying the color they choose with all the created meanings, including the lack of trust and evil associated with black. Regarding shape, the crewmate is the main form present. It is important to note that it, alongside other elements in the maps, are made from simple geometric shapes without much detail, which is also part of the aesthetic we will discuss later. When observing lines, it can be seen most lines are coarse and irregular, which is part of the animated aesthetics of the game. Finally, architecture. The main action is developed inside a spaceship known as the Scale, which has the outer shape of a turtle. It is designed according to futuristic styles.
In order to analyze the principles of design, we will focus on the kill animation. First, we can see the image is properly balanced according to the rule of thirds, as shown in the mind map, with the lines on the feet and eyes of the crewmate being the horizontal ones and the vertical ones being those characters, with the focus on the imposter located in the first vertex. Then we have rhythm, which is seen in the repetition of the crewmate shapes. Nonetheless, this is not a direct pattern because each iteration has its own characteristics such as color and headgear. Regarding proximity, there is only one cluster of characters, the imposter and the crewmate in the same plane. Contrast is very easy to explain. We just need to take into consideration that one character is getting killed, while another is killing it. They are completely static, while the other has movement, stabbing the other. Also, the red fire background is chaotic and more dynamic than the characters, with its shapes and colors representing treason, death, chaos, and tragedy. About proportion, we can see the crewmates do not follow human anatomical proportions, because their eyes are too big compared to their body, their waist too short, and they have no arms. About scale, it is interesting to note that the spaceship has just enough room for standing crewmates, and that many components, such as the storage boxes, are about the same size as crewmates. Regarding focus, the main focus is imposter, for it's the center of the action and the only moving entity. The movement is not in the spear going towards and through the crewmate's eye. Finally, the image is in harmony because the contrast between the background and the subjects that creates balance between action and stillness.
Regarding the meaning of the image in the context, first we have aesthetics. As previously discussed, the general aesthetics of the game is animated drawings with coarse lines, avoiding complex shapes that give too much detail and respecting simplicity, which is seen in the shape of the crewmate. Regarding semiotics, we have mainly two icons that are representing the user interface and easy to note. The first is the dialog box, which represents a conversation, and in this case is the button that activates the chat. Also, there's the gear, which in informatics is usually used to represent settings and adjustments. Regarding code, it is interesting that the game employs both visual code and written code between participants in the form of a live chat, where everyone can write and give argumentation about who they think their imposter is.
Regarding the final topic of analysis, we have the media. Here we can identify aspects such as the clothing. The clothing in this case is the clothing of the crewmate, which is a full suit with a backpack that seems like a life support system, which alongside the eyewear seems like a spacesuit, which is appropriate for the setting that happens in a spaceship while in space. Also, it is important to identify the virtual space of play, which is a map, in this case called the Skeld. It has several different areas, each one with its own function in the spaceship as a whole, where the astronauts must carry out their task. Their map is big enough for it to be challenging to beat the game by completing the task, but small enough to avoid everyone from escaping the imposter. That's all regarding the visual space and the space of play.
In this class, I have learned to locate each and every one of the elements in an image, in the same way to be able to distinguish the difference between each of the contexts that are around me, from movies to even video games. The way in which I have applied it is to broaden my panorama and to distinguish each of these elements with any subject that is of interest to me. I have noticed that I am more analytical with movies and not with video games, since when watching them I focus on each element that it has, from the characters to the textures. With this, the question that came to my mind is how it is that people sometimes prefer digital communication instead of relating physically.
Throughout this course, I've learned that images are not inanimate objects. They are alive, they have meaning and can be purposely created to achieve wonders. I think I become a more perceptive person and I'm aware of what effects images have on me. I no longer submit so easily to marketing or propaganda without first analyzing and comprehending the purpose of the author and the stylistic devices they use to achieve their goals. One question I have now is, how can I use the image on my favor to help my career as an engineer?